fireplace poker, Vincent Hurst with his wrench. The possibilities are endless. So why then would the killer choose to wrap a blood pressure cuff around his neck and inflate it and strangle him to death? The answer to that question is so simple, I feel foolish for not recognizing sooner what must have really happened.
Might one ask what that is?
Obviously, when the blood pressure cuff was put around his neck, Mr. Starkweather was already dead. Am I right, Miss Van Zandt?
You really are very clever, Mr. Davis.
It must have been you. We were in here together when the lights went out. Mr. Starkweather started ringing his bell. I left to go get Vincent Hurst, and you went to check on Mr. Starkweather. The killer must have murdered the man and slipped off into Miss Withers' room seconds before you found the body.
That's what I figured, too.
Well, why would you put the cuff around his neck?
As our able detective has surmised, the murderer made it appear that Mr. Starkweather had had a heart attack. Death seemed to have indeed been due to natural causes. There was no doubt in my mind, however, that someone in this house had killed him. And I knew under the circumstances that the coroner would have no reason to perform an autopsy, nor would the police conduct an investigation. I wasn't about ready to let my murderer's employer get away scot-free. So I noticed the blood pressure cuff in the bed and put it around his neck and inflated it before wheeling him into this room.
And your plan worked. No one would question the fact that Mr. Starkweather was murdered.
So young Simon hired Mr. Davis to find the killer.
Which I have. That was very naughty of you, Miss Van Zandt. For a while, your little ploy distracted me from the main problem. Instead of focusing on who did it, I kept wondering, why did they do it that way? Once I saw that piece of the puzzle, the rest came easier.
I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, but if you have discovered the identity of the murderer, then the ends seem to have justified the means.
And I imagine the police will agree, and they might even overlook the fact that you're guilty of tampering with evidence at a crime scene.
Well, if not, I'm on very good terms with the local judges.
Wait a minute. How do we know that Miss Van Zandt didn't do it herself?
No motive.
Oh, yeah.
Well, don't keep us in suspense, Mike. Tell us, who did murder Mr. Starkweather?
I'll do better than that. I'll show you. Bear with me.
Oh, what?
Stay seated.
What's going on?
I'm sure all of you still have the candles that Miss Trent distributed earlier tonight to keep with you in case of a blackout. Take them out, please, and light them.
Oh, look, how very Christmassy.
When I first examined Mr. Starkweather's body, I found what I first thought to be a few drops of blood on his bathrobe. Closer inspection showed them to be a different substance entirely, and I forgot about them for the moment. When I was interrogating you individually, I noticed one of you scraping one thumbnail against the other. At the time, I took it to be a nervous gesture. I guess you could say it was nerves triggered by guilt, as it turns out. I didn't recognize the significance of that gesture until I recalled Minerva's testimony. She reminded me of those of you who met in the kitchen with candles when the lights went out. A few minutes ago, I found these on the floor of the study, and they gave me the link I needed to identify the murderer. Thin scrapings of red tallow from the murderer's thumbnails, tallow that matched the red drops on Mr. Starkweather's bathrobe, tallow from the red candle that the murderer was holding when she killed Simon Starkweather, tallow from the one red candle among all of you that you were holding, Fiona Starkweather.
Oh, there could have been another red candle.
There were not. I remember when we started on White Last Christmas, we were going to have to get new red ones.
Oh. Is that all of the evidence did you have to show the police? One red candle?
No, ma'am, Miss Starkweather, I have better proof than that. I recently re-examined Mr. Starkweather's body, and as I moved around the room earlier, I looked at everyone's wrist, and I noticed that you have several small, thin scrapes on your wrist, made, no doubt, by Mr. Starkweather as he struggled for his life. I will bet my reputation that these skin samples that I was able to remove from under his fingernails came from you. It'll be easy to prove. I've met quite a few experts on DNA testing in the last 6 months.
Bravo, Mr. Davis.
Well?
I don't suppose you'd like to clone those scrapings and put the new me in prison? No, I didn't think so. Well, I suppose my first mistake was in trying to cross a lawyer, Miss Van Zandt. I might have caused you to lose Uncle Simon's billions, but you certainly got your revenge.
Why don't you tell us what happened?
Well, might as well. You pretty much got it figured out anyway. I was furious with Uncle Simon for lifting up our spirits and then dashing them to the ground. I thought a man that evil doesn't deserve to live. So I slipped into his room. He was sitting there in his wheelchair. Looked down at his smug little face, and I told him what I was going to do. He was terrified. But then he shot back in the wheelchair and crashed right into the bedside table. Well, that knocked the lamp down and the pitcher of water on top of the lamp. Well, when the water hit the lamp, kablooey!
So you didn't cause the blackout deliberately?
No, it almost ruined everything. I had the candle that Trent gave me, and I lit it. And then with the other hand, I grabbed that oxygen mask and I stuck it over his face. Oh, he made a feeble attempt to fight back, and I guess that's when he did that. And I suppose some of the candle wax dropped onto his robe. But he was too feeble. It was all over in a few minutes. Then I slipped through the side door into Wither's room. She was standing with her back towards me, still trying to light her candle. Pathetic. I picked the brass candlestick up off the bureau, and I hit her in the head with it. But I slipped out into the hallway, and I stood there for a minute, and then I heard this horrible scream. So I just ran down here and joined the rest of you.
I guess you were as surprised as everyone else when you saw the blood pressure cuff around Mr. Starkweather's neck.
Oh, I was. But it was easy to figure out what you had done. I could have killed you too, but I didn't dare. Oh, until now.
Easy. You don't do anything you might regret.
Too bad you late for that, Mr. Davis. Get up, you're coming with me.
Where did we go? The bridge is washed out.
Oh, I know where that tree is that Simon talked about. Simon gave you car keys.
You'll never get away.
Oh, I think I will. The phones are still out, or your car's on this side of the street. It'll take anyone hours to get to town and inform the police, and by then I'll be long gone.
Well, what about me?
Well, you've ruined everything. What do you think I'm going to do with you, Missy?
Nothing. I
Hold it right there.
Are you all right, Lois? Yes, I'm fine. Consider it a preview of the afterlife.
I always keep these handy. You never know when handcuffs might come in handy.
Might remind me to give you a big bonus.
Well, you're going to spend a long, long time, honey. Behind bars. What have you got to say for yourself? Quit laughing.